everybody, my name is Uta Pfengler. I'm an exchange student from Germany here at Chico State, and I'm going to present the findings of my case study paper to you today. Let's start! Okay, meet me. Like I already said, my name is Uta Pfengler. I was born in 1991 in Germany. I'm currently 24 years old. The level of my education is university level, as you might have guessed because I'm studying here. And I asked my parents how they would have described my personality as a kid, and that applies basically still. I was, and I am still, creative and active, which is why I'm studying arts. I wanted to make things, which I still do. I'm very explorative, and I'm still very willful, which is a nicer subscription for I'm kind of headstrong sometimes. My goal in this paper was to see if my developmental stage of drawing and making art was appropriate. So I took a look at the subject matter, at the technique, and at the materials to get the information out of that. And to see if there was a change in interests or a change in the subject matter and in the techniques I used. My first observation is from 1996 when I was 5 years old. It's a watercolor picture and it depicts a swan in a lake which is surrounded by reeds. So the subject matter clearly was nature, specifically the lake with a swan, and I used a wet and wet technique of the watercolors. The materials were white watercolor paper, a brush, and watercolors. We can see partial transparencies, for example at the shoreline of the lake, visible through the swan here. And the stems of the reeds also go through the lake to the front of the picture, to the front bottom line of the picture. So it's not really clear if the reeds are growing on the shoreline or if they're in front of the lake and I just colored over them. But it could be an X-ray drawing. It's almost the proper sizes of the swan and the reeds to each other. There's a horizontal line and a bottom line, which I interpreted the shoreline as. The transition, it would be a transition between the pre-schematic phase, which is from age 4 to 7, and the schematic phase between the ages 7 to 9, is what I found. So it would be a little bit ahead of what it should be. Observation number 2 shows a water dragon, which was done in 2001 at the age of 10, and it's a copper foil print. So the subject matter is fantastic animals, as the water dragon already shows. The technique is a copper foil print, as I already said, where you have a thicker copper foil and you wrinkle it with your hands, and then you flatten it out again and it leaves the wrinkles, and you put color on top of it and print with that. Which also explains what was used for that. The materials were copper foil, black printing ink, and thick printing paper. I then have another observation from 2004, which was 3 years later at the age of 13. It's a pencil drawing in the style of manga, which I became interested in around that age because I was introduced to the books and I really liked the style of drawing. So it shows a magical girl, or the embodiment of the power of the elements, which I was always interested in since nature was a big topic to me, and I always incorporated it even in my manga drawings. It's also a cat girl, which shows my interests in the genre of manga that I read, and of course it's also a human figure, so that came up too during that time. The technique is drawing. It's done with a pencil on white paper. It is a photographic view, and the sexual characteristics are emphasized, like the very long hair, the breasts that you can see very easily, the slim waist. So I put it in the pseudo-naturalistic stage between the ages of 12 and 14, which is very age-appropriate. Observation number 4, that should be number 4, I'm sorry, shows my grandpa. I did a portrait of him in 2005, which was 1 year later than the previous picture, at the age of 14. It's done with pencil, watercolor, and acrylic color. So that showed the subject matter is portrait, or the human figure again. The materials used were pencil, watercolor, and acrylic color. It's also a photographic view. It was also drawn from a photograph. and there is clearly a naturalistic attempt and an awareness of the proportions. I placed this in the adolescent art phase of Lowenthal theory between the age of 14 and 17. And my last observation is a current work at the age of 24. I did it last year in 2015 while I was here in Chico, and it's called Forever 21 and shows a slip cast porcelain potato on the left hand side, while the original that I made the mold of and cast the left hand potato from is on the right hand side, and that decayed. And the subject matter is nature, decay, consumerism, and natural versus artificial products. The technique is, like I said, porcelain slip casting and basically time for waiting till the other potato decayed. The materials are potato, porcelain slip, and golden spray paint. And it has more of a conceptual attempt, but so the idea dictates the use of materials. My conclusion, was there a change? I didn't really find one, since nature and the environment were always interesting to me and were always important to me, and I follow it up till present day. The human body and fantastic worlds are still interesting to me. I just don't incorporate them as much in my current artwork because I'm working more conceptual. The techniques vary, or rather expanded. I started with watercolor and drawings, and I added acrylic drawing, and then I worked also with three-dimensional materials and created sculptures, which for me was a switch in materials, or rather an expansion. I like to say it's an expansion. Developmental appropriacy. I was early on a little bit ahead of the usual stages, but I think it went later on. It just fell into the usual stages of Lowenthal's theory. I obviously showed talent in various techniques, and I still pick up new techniques very easily, like the slip casting here in Chico. These are my references. Thank you for your attendance.